Hello, c'est moi, it's Mystical McKay, back again tonight, on this evening, to read another chapter of the completion process. I'm very, very, very excited to read this to you guys because I read this myself all the way through once already, and I truly think that it's just like one of the most phenomenal books that have ever been written, literally. In my humble opinion. But I'm just going to read one chapter, I think, and then do this like every Sunday, hopefully, kind of have like a rhythm where we just do like one chapter a week, maybe, just an idea. So we did the introduction, I think 2 days ago, so I am going to be reading the first actual chapter of the completion process tonight, and then next week maybe I'll do chapter 2. Thank you guys for everybody who has been following me on this crazy journey. Honestly, it's kind of crazy that I already have about 50 followers, and I feel super blessed that you guys have taken the time to find me on here and just, watch my stuff and follow me. So it means the world. Thank you. Hopefully I'll get my shit together soon. All right, let's begin. Chapter 1 of the completion process by Teal Swan. The practice of putting yourself back together again. Chapter 1. Seeking the Great Reconciliation. The completion process is the doorway to liberation. It's a way to put yourself back together again so you are no longer inhibited by the past or terrified of the future. This process is for anyone. We all have past hurts in our lives that need healing, and often we cannot see that the symptoms that we are experiencing in our current life are connected to these past hurts. But they are. We have simply not connected the dots. Most of us wish that our world was a platform for harmony and pleasure. The reality, however, is that while there is harmony and pleasure here on earth, there is also conflict and suffering. Every day, traumatized soldiers are returned from war. Inhabitants of war-torn areas struggle to pick up the broken pieces of their lives and move forward. Children are abused. Women and men are raped. A natural disaster happens with nothing. Emergency teams, such as ER doctors, first responders, and firefighters, assist others through horrific circumstances and often find it difficult to process the distress of what they've experienced. Others succumb to addictions and try to drown out the pain of emptiness. All of the difficult circumstances that we struggle with have one thing in common: trauma. Trauma! The symptoms of trauma can manifest as flashbacks, nightmares, insomnia, paralyzing fear, addictions, anxiety, or depression, as well as unrelated thoughts about a specific past event or series of events. Some people may find themselves struggling with low self-esteem, issues of self-harm, chronic pain, mental illness, or just a general unsatisfaction or painful life. Often, a person does not know what is causing their symptoms. They don't have any idea that it's connected to an unresolved experience. Most painful episodes like these have their origins in childhood trauma. A person might not even be consciously aware of this trauma, even when it causes self-grief in the day-to-day life. As current psychology modalities are beginning to recognize this, therapists' approach with patients are slowly but surely switching from "what is wrong with you" to "what happened to you." No one is immune to trauma. I have used the completion process with people from children to adults living all over the world, from many different cultures and various stages of life, and on all types of career paths. In my own practice, I have used it to bring and resolve and integrate for people who are grieving, who are struggling with mental illness, addictions, weight issues, chronic or terminal illnesses, or whom are recovering from childhood sexual abuse. Sometimes clients can't seem to make their relationships work, or they lack a sense of purpose. It has also been very effective for people who are struggling with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, as a result of trauma from wars, accidents, disasters, or personal tragedies. This book is designed to lead you into the process so that you can understand it, experience it, let your life be transformed by it, and even use it to transform the lives of others who might be asking for your help. So awesome. I'm going to tune in on here so I can see what you guys say, if anybody comments anything. For a moment. Thank you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for being here with me. Okay. How to use this book. This first section is called Part 1, Attunement, and the following 4 chapters explain the rationale behind this process, particularly how the human mind works in regards to the process of memories, emotions, and trauma. It's important for you to understand the context so that the actual steps in the completion process will make sense to you. In Part 1, you will notice that I use examples from my own life and from clients that I have worked with to help you to further understand the universal truths. The completion process itself is made up of 18 steps that I hope that I have listed and expanded upon in Part 2, Completion. For each step, I provide the reason for it, how to proceed through it, and what to do if certain emotions or reactions arise. I have written in this way so that you can walk through the process on your own or engage with a caring friend or a certified practitioner to walk through each step with you. Please note that the completion process is designed to flow sequentially so that each step naturally leads to the next from start to finish, from step 1 to 18. However, for the sake of comprehension, I have broken up my explanation of the process within 3 separate chapters. Chapter 6 covers step 1 through 6 and pertains to the part of the process where we are experiencing the memory that is causing us pain in our current life. Chapter 7 deals with steps 7 through 13 and discusses the part of the process where we alter the memory itself for the purpose of healing. Chapter 8 details step 14 through 18, which pertains to the part of the process where we rescue ourselves from the memory and bring ourselves into congruence with our current timeline. I'm just going to say for a moment, just adding my little tidbit, I did the completion process, I think, 2 times in my entire life so far, and that part where she says, when we rescue ourselves from the memory and bring ourselves into congruence with our current timeline, I can't even describe to you what that feels like when you actually do that whole process all the way through, and that shift is made within yourself. It is like unlike anything I've ever felt, and it was like, oh my god, it's crazy. Anyway, just wanted to mention that. Sorry for my snort. What are we trying to complete? life is unpredictable. You may experience phases in your life where you feel like you finally have it all together, only to have it all turned upside down. You may suddenly feel like a train has been run off its tracks, or that you are heading up a creek without a paddle. Oof. When you are headed for a train wreck, or you find yourself floating along in utter chaos, it can be a sign that you need to seek reintegration. All of these experiences are valid and necessary. They are part of our development, so learning about them can be fascinating and very beneficial. Once you learn to pay attention to the triggers of your memories and take time to deal with the core issue, then you can finally heal. The trigger is an important concept, so let me take a few minutes to explain it. A trigger is anything that helps recall or bring the surface of a traumatic memory from your past. It can be a word, a tone, a voice, a smell, a sensation, a face, a place, or any situation or thing that causes you to all of a sudden feel unsettled or fearful. You might not even know what is causing you to suddenly feel sick, hurt, anxious, or uneasy, but your subconscious knows. In this way, a trigger is a reminder of a previous wound, and it is a signal to address the issue. Triggers are not negative or unwanted in this scenario. Rather, they are an invitation for you to reintegrate these fractured aspects back into your own being. In essence, the completion process is a practical and powerful way to use triggers to reintegrate the fractured aspects of yourself and become whole again. So awesome. So awesome. I love reading about this because it's so amazing. This approach will make more sense to you as you continue reading, but for now, just think of yourself as a river, and the path of your childhood self that fractured due to traumatic events are like streams that branched off of the river. In nature, the more streams that reintegrate with the river, the more water is available to that river. Since your consciousness is, in fact, a huge stream of energy, each time you reintegrate a lost part of yourself, you will have more energy and enjoy a greater level of consciousness that you had before the reintegration. When you become okay with the fact that you are a masterpiece that is always a work in progress, you will learn to find peace and also joy in the continual expansion. Rest assured, the better it gets, the better it gets. Oh, like the fact that I know exactly like what that feels like, like a smidge, not even like nearly as much as if I integrated like some deep wounds in myself, but I know what it's like to just have a little sip of that, and it's crazy. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. Anyway, sorry. Since this is an ongoing process, please do not confuse completion with being finished. Each time you reach a new level of enlightenment, there is always more expansion on the horizon. There is no such thing as an enlightened retirement. The great beauty in our lives is that we are never truly in a finished state. Don't be discouraged by the fact that uncovering our true selves is a continual process, a process that really has no end. Once you begin to uncover yourself, you will find that you were born with freedom. You were born with integrity. Yes. You were born with joy. And you were born with love. You simply have been conditioned to forget all of these gifts. Learning to talk this talk. The completion process brings your past wounds to the point of healing. Again, I'm being careful with the words that I'm using. In this context, wounds are not gashes with blood oozing from them, but rather, I use the word wounds to represent any unhealed emotion, mental or physical struggles that you may be contending with. Even the word healing can be a bit misleading. Generally, healing implies that something is not okay as it currently is. This, in and of itself, is a primary wound that all of us carry. Something from our past was not okay. The beauty of the completion process is that the very thing doing the healing is the presence of consciousness in the form of attention that you are offering to that wound. By being unconditionally present with the inner wound, you are finally making it okay to feel exactly how you feel. As you proceed through the process, you'll come to know this concept very well. As we apply the completion process, we are not needing or asking our emotions to change. Our emotions change precisely because we are not asking them or forcing them to do anything. We are giving ourselves the unconditional, focused presence and therefore unconditional love. These actions transform us into who and what we really are. It allows us to become whole and restore our integrity. All of those who commit to the completion process commit to a healing process during which the layers concealing their true selves are being peeled back, ending a cycle of suffering in their lives. It's not that we no longer feel negative emotion. It's that negative emotion no longer causes us to even suffer in the way that it once did. What the completion process might feel like. As a healer, I am overjoyed when I get feedback from past clients. I am including a client's story here so you can get a sense of what this process feels like and what it can deliver. This client's trauma may be very different from yours, but the process works the same way with whatever trauma you are trying to resolve. I got to know this client, whom we'll call Joanna, quite well along the way. Although I know her story inside out, I believe it's more impactful to hear it in her own voice. Stories always are. Joanna is crystal clear about the role of the completion process and how it has played in her life. It has been a life-saving tool for me, she said. I was a zombie of a person before finding it. Wow. She began, "My life used to be so painful, I did not want to live. I was in so much pain every day I did not know what happiness or joy or fun even was. They were concepts so far away from my reality that I had even forgotten that they were possible for me. It felt like my life was impossible. No matter what I did, I could not get away from my hell. My past was always present with me, and I could not escape the years of sexual abuse and depression." End quotes. When I met her, Joanna told me that she felt powerless in relation to both her past and her present, and this was impacting virtually all aspects of her life. My depression made it so hard that I was in bed most days, and if I wasn't, I really wanted to be. I wanted nothing to do with the outside world. How could I deal with the outside world when my internal world was a living hell? Every single day, I would wish I could just die. Either something had to drastically change or I was convinced that I would die. This is when the completion process entered my life. When I first started the process, it became obvious that I had a long way to go. I was not in my body, and I had no memories, so I had to start with baby steps by breathing myself back into my own body. But that was okay, because it felt better than where I had been. It felt so much better, in fact, that soon the completion process became my new go-to technique whenever I felt like I just couldn't handle life. This process isn't easy. You're going to have to relive everything that you have been trying to avoid your whole life, but is very much worth it. I have used this process on some of my most terrifying of memories. End quote. That's what Joanna was saying. Courageously, Joanna is now able to tell her whole story. She wants to share this story with others because she feels that if she was able to reveal her truth, she may be able to help others who face their own very dark and horrific situations. She said, "There was an instant that I had to use the completion process right after a trigger, and I saw rape scene after rape scene come up. I wanted so badly to run the other way, but I stayed with it, and I continued through until the end. And what I found was that, as painful as each and every scene was, I could live through it. After the incredible and intense experience, I realized that I could now live life, and there was more than just darkness of experience." End quote. What happened was that once Joanna's past no longer had a hold on her, she was not destined to live with the pain every single day. Speaking confidently, she concluded, "I now feel like a person instead of a shell of a person. I had so many fantastic memories because this process has allowed me to leave my past where it belongs, in the past. This process has been the light at the end of the tunnel for me, giving me hope to what I thought was a completely hopeless situation, bringing me back to life." Awesome. Are you a match to this process? Like Joanna, you've now found the completion process within this book, which means that you or someone you know and love is a match to this process. Otherwise, the universe would not have put these words in your hands. Now is the time to learn how to really be present with yourself and figure out if you are ready to go back and care for yourself. Consider what is rising up within you right now. Your body needs you. Your mind needs you. Your feelings need you. Your painful perceptions need you. The wounded children within you need you. Your suffering needs you. It's time to really be there for all of these parts that have been crying out for you for so long. You've suffered because you haven't been touched by compassion and understanding. You've suffered because you haven't been touched by unconditional love. This has been happening because you've been giving yourself the message that you only want to be present with yourself in a moment if your life is going well and if you're feeling positive emotion. This has made you a fair weather friend to yourself. More than that, you have set conditions for loving yourself. This is the deepest form of betrayal. It's yet another wound that we collectively carry. Now you have the opportunity to heal those wounds and reconcile with yourself. And I believe... Oh, nope, there's a little bit more. It's a long-ass chapter. I love it, though. I'm ready. Okay. The subconscious mind. Everyone on earth, regardless of how good his or her life and childhood may have been, have experienced trauma. Therefore, everyone experiences post-traumatic stress to some degree. The people who know for sure that they have post-traumatic stress disorder are the ones experiencing post-traumatic stress to such a degree that it interferes with their abilities to function. Thus, they have been given an actual diagnosis. But as humans, we all have it to some degree. You're not special. No, I'm just kidding. Understanding how this happens starts with understanding the human mind. The physical human was created with a subconscious and a conscious mind. We call the part of the mind that controls all atomic aspects of living the subconscious. The subconscious mind is in control of things like your heartbeat, body temperature, and digestion. You don't even have to think about your heart beating in order for it to beat. Wow. Your subconscious mind is in control of everything that is not being attended by your conscious mind. If we have to think about keeping our hearts beating, digesting food, and our beliefs, we could not even focus. Focusing is what enables us to create, to learn, and evolve. Focusing is what the conscious mind does best. The subconscious mind is in charge of your beliefs, all of your previous life experiences, your memories, and the skills that you have already acquired. The subconscious mind takes control of anything that is learned, so a person can focus on the more important things in his or her life. If you think a thought enough times, the subconscious mind takes it over and it becomes automatic. The best way to understand this aspect of the subconscious mind is to think about an Olympic swimmer. When the swimmer was just learning how to swim, she could not think about anything else while she was swimming. She had to intently focus on each stroke. At some point, she could do the strokes automatically, and now she is an Olympic swimmer. She can execute the backstroke so well, she doesn't even have to think about it as she does it. She can do it and plan dinner at the same time. The same elite athlete may have a hard time teaching a beginner how to do this backstroke because she learned how to do it so long ago. Her subconscious mind took over the action many years earlier, so she lost conscious awareness of how to swim the stroke. It's simply that automatic. Your subconscious mind, then, is your living, breathing version of autopilot. That's really funny that she mentions that, because that's exactly how I feel about, like, when people ask me to teach them how to play guitar. I'm like, I don't even know how I do what I do, because I've just been doing it for so long the same way every single time. It's just a natural, like, I don't know how to sit you down and tell you this is how I do it. So funny. Anyway, as it applies to the completion process, we must understand a crucial truth about the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind takes over control of anything that interferes with the conscious mind. This is where the subconscious mind is capable of both keeping us alive and destroying our lives. Yeah. The subconscious mind is the reason that we don't have to think about jumping out of the way of an oncoming train when it barrels towards us. But there are other times when the subconscious mind takes over things for the sake of our own survival. And this mechanism that benefits us in the short term can harm us immensely in the long term. One example of this is our belief systems. If your parents got a divorce when you were young, you might decide that it's dangerous to love anyone because you'll eventually lose them. If the pain that you felt about this matter interfered with your life enough, the subconscious mind might own that belief. You will then have no conscious awareness of your original thought or belief on this matter. You would simply just observe that the minute you get close or intimate with someone, you pull away and want to end the relationship. As a grown person, you are only aware of the symptom. The root cause of that symptom remains deeply buried within your subconscious mind. In this way, your subconscious mind takes over your thoughts and emotions. And when situations are extreme, it can take over entire memories that are a threat to your conscious mind. How memories are suppressed. Suppressed memories, also known as repressed memory, is currently a very controversial topic in the field of psychology. A suppressed memory occurs when a situation is associated with a high level of trauma or stress, and the memory or the entire situation is unconsciously blocked, so that the person has no conscious memory of it at all. Even though the memory affects that person on a conscious level, they have no ability to even recall the specific memory. Crazy. Some people in the field of psychology dispute the concept of suppressed memory, while others support it wholeheartedly. I am one of the supporters. So am I. Suppressed memories are real. I believe that just about everyone has experienced it. The question isn't whether or not someone has a suppressed memory. The real question is, to what degree? To understand more about suppressed memories, you need to understand how trauma really works. Trauma is simply a state of emotional and mental distress caused by an experience. A trauma is not necessarily a tragedy. For example, lost my place. It's traumatic to experience birth in today's mainstream medical facilities. It's traumatic to a baby to be weaned from its mother's milk. It's traumatic to a 3-year-old to lose track of his mother in a grocery store. Yes. Oh my God, yes. With the broad definition of trauma, you can see that even the best parents on earth could not raise a child in a way that they will experience absolutely no trauma. And be aware that what may seem like a somewhat minor trauma, such as perhaps a childhood disappointment, does not feel minor when you're experiencing it. When someone experiences an event that is emotionally traumatizing, sometimes she or he has no way to integrate that event into their subconscious life. When this happens, for the sake of their emotional survival, this person often entirely suppresses the memory. The memory is then dissociated from the self and stored in a fragmented way. Let me explain what I mean by fragmented. The memory is accompanied by senses such as sound, taste, smell, and sight, and emotion. When a situation is particularly traumatizing, the sensory aspects of the memory are often stored separately. For example, the mind suppresses the images associated with the memory deeper than the emotions associated with the memory. For this reason, people who recover suppressed memories often perceive them or begin to remember them in fragments. Which is why it can be so confusing to go through the process of recovering them. For example, a person who has been sexually abused in a childhood may have no memory of the actual event, but because the memory didn't suppress the scent aspect of the memory, But because the mind didn't suppress the scent aspect of the memory or the emotional aspect of the memory as deeply as the visual images associated with that memory, the person who is now an adult may be easily triggered by a smell. They might be innocently walking down a grocery store aisle with no conscious awareness of any past abuse, and then they smell the same cologne that their childhood abuser used to wear. The scent can be really unpleasant, causing nausea or even a panic attack. The smell of the cologne brings back the terror, the emotional aspect of the memory, but because the person doesn't consciously recall the whole memory, they do not recognize the trigger. The wave of nausea or panic seems to have come right out of the blue. Because the reaction seems completely random, this person might think that they might be going crazy. It serves the mind to disassociate when certain experiences are traumatic. Let me explain this concept because it's important in the understanding of the completion process. A disassociative state is a psychological state when someone separates themselves from an experience. In this way, disassociation is a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism that enables us to avoid a very unpleasant experience. There is a mild and severe form of this. Disassociation can be seen on a spectrum the same way that trauma can. At the mildest end of disassociation, a person could simply just daydream, instead of focusing on what they are currently doing or experiencing in that present moment. Or a person might choose to go numb. At the severe end of disassociation, a person might completely detach from reality and start experiencing periods of time where they lose their sense of identity or create completely new identities. This is sometimes seen when someone has experienced ritual abuse, sexual abuse, or ravages of war. Now we understand that when disassociation is viewed on the spectrum, on one side, you may have a person rejecting his or her feelings in anger. On the other side, you might have a person separating from their entire identity in order to escape a completely horrific event. Any kind of disassociation creates a split within that person, between their conscious self and their subconscious self. If disassociation happens frequently, we will have many splits within ourselves. By disassociating from an experience, you push it out of your awareness, so you don't have to endure the pain or discomfort of that feeling associated with the event. It also serves the mind because it prioritizes our survival. Not just physical survival, but also mental and emotional survival. If you were a small child dependent upon someone who was abusing you, you would have no choice but to remain attached to this person. In essence, the cognitive dissonance associated with living with a monster is so great that you actually could not go on living in the atmosphere of that much terror. So, by suppressing the memory of the actual abuse, you maintain your attachment with that adult who is abusing you and thus ensure your own survival. As you work through the completion process, you may well recover many memories that you have forgotten and additional details about memories that you already consciously remember. You will see just how traumatizing a certain experience was in your past, and just how much of your current life has been shaped by that experience. Crazy. So crazy. Okay. The rejected self doesn't go away. We are born whole, but that wholeness is short-lived because we are relationally dependent. Relationally dependent. Being born relationally dependent into families that socialize us into society that is not fully evolved can be problematic. This is because we learn that certain aspects of ourselves are acceptable and others are not. What is acceptable or unacceptable depends on the perspective of the family that you are born into. The aspects of us that are seen as unacceptable, both positive or negative, are rejected by our family members, and the aspects that are seen as acceptable are welcomed. So, because we are relationally dependent, we will do anything in the name of survival to reject and therefore suppress those aspects of ourselves that are disapproved of, or disapproved of while exaggerating those aspects of ourselves that are approved. So funny. So true. Let's see how much we have left. This is a long chapter. I'm here for it though. Okay. Couple more pages and then we'll end it off for the night. Thank you for being here with me, guys. Thank you. Okay. The self-preserved instinct to disassociate is, in fact, our first act of self-rejection. For example, consider a child who is born into a family where anger is not acceptable. When the child gets angry, he is shamed, so he suppresses and denies his anger for the sake of surviving within his household. Other times, over time, the anger will become subconscious. As an adult, the same person will most likely not have any awareness that they even have any anger within them. They will not and cannot see themselves clearly because they have rejected that aspect of themselves. So when people tell them that they seem angry, they won't relate at all. They'll probably think of themselves as easygoing. So now we know that when we reject and therefore suppress something, it does not disappear. It just fades away from our own awareness. To acknowledge the suppressed memory, you will bring up the same fear of rejection that you suppressed earlier in your life. And you may well feel like you are going to die. No wonder total self-awareness is so difficult to attain. Everyone who was ever socialized, which is all of us, went through this process of splitting themselves into parts. We grow up with some parts of the self that are owned and other parts that are rejected. This self-rejection is the birth of self-hate. The emptiness that we feel in the result of those rejected and therefore suppressed parts of ourselves. Your soul wants only one thing, and that is to make you whole again. As you proceed through life, you will be provided with every opportunity to become whole again. But in order to return to wholeness, you need to see and accept the aspects of yourself that were rejected and suppressed along the way. I know firsthand this is incredibly painful. Self-awareness does not come naturally to those who have been avoiding pain, because to become aware of those lost aspects, you must stop trying to escape the emptiness within you where those missing parts should be. Wow. Attraction and projection. My favorite. What happens after years of self-rejection? You might well overcompensate for whatever trait that you have rejected and therefore suppressed. For example, the person who suppresses the aspect of themselves that is a striver becomes apathetic. A person who suppresses the aspect of themselves that is apathetic will become such a striver that they excel at everything. The law of attraction applies to all of our extremes. We are matched to those who mirror the aspects of ourselves that we have suppressed. We are attracted to them, even though they seem to be our opposite. Because the rejected part of ourselves is still deeply hidden. This is why our partners, or those who are closest to us, tend to be our opposing mirrors. They reflect an attribute that we have suppressed, and we reflect the aspect that they have suppressed. This means the person who is apathetic will end up with an ambitious person, and both of them will be caused pain from each other because each is a reminder of the rejected aspect of themselves. That is super, super, super funny. Example of that from my personal life is my relationship to my father, like to a T. Crazy. Like, he basically ran away from his childhood because, you know, he wanted to get away from his mom, and then he ends up basically birthing an exact replica of his mother, which is me. Anyway, to better understand the idea of the lost self and how it applies to attraction, look at these two diagrams below, representing the conscious, whereas the black aspects represent the subconscious. If the circles for a person A and person B were completely white, they would be fully conscious, but they are not. Each has a number of black pie pieces representing some aspects of their subconscious. Some aspects have been rejected and suppressed. Each of us are naturally compelled to be whole, and so we are attracted to the conscious aspects in another person that are subconscious within ourselves. Notice how these two circles are polarized. Together, they make a whole, complete white circle. This is the substitute for being whole and of the self. Each person reflects in the other what is missing within the self. And I'll show you what this diagram looks like. It just shows, obviously, it's the same thing. Like, if those two merged together, then it would be just one white circle, right? The crucial thing to understand is that we can see the things in other people that we are totally unaware of within ourselves. This is the essence of projection. When we see our own negative aspects, those that we ourselves have previously rejected, when they show up in others, it triggers a response. We have the same reaction in these aspects when we had a long time ago. We reject it. We hate it. We get rid of it. Do anything to avoid it. On the other hand, when we see our own positive aspects that we may have previously rejected, and they show up in another person, we fall in love. Because it feels like our opportunity to become whole. So funny. We want more of it. We become addicted to it. We glorify it. We put it on a pedestal and even idolize it. This is what happens when you see crowds of screaming girls at pop star concerts. The girls are projecting the positive aspects that they have rejected within themselves, usually a sense of significance, onto the person on stage. What? No. The main characteristic of the rejected aspects of yourself are their complete invisibility to you and their complete visibility to others. Guess what? This is how it's supposed to work if you've suppressed an aspect of your wholeness. Projecting doesn't mean you're wrong or bad. It makes you normal. Here is an important lesson. Any extreme aversion to a trait in another person is a reflection of the level of rejection that you've developed towards that trait or the potential of that trait within your own self. The more you hate something in someone else, the more you've rejected that same trait within yourself a long time ago. Makes sense, right? It really does. Like when you see someone doing something and you're like, oh my God, it's such a horrible trait to have. It's because at some point in your life when you were a child or younger or, not super young, at any point you felt that in yourself and you're like, oh my God, this is not a right way to feel. So I'm going to make this feeling bad. And anytime I see it or I'm going to judge it and be like, that's not a good thing, right? So funny. And the more you love something that you see in someone else, the more you rejected it in yourself a long time ago. Very interesting. Clarifying the matter of projection. In our culture, there is a common misunderstanding about projection that I'd like to clear up. It has been suggested that we project our own rejected self onto someone who doesn't have the same traits at all. This isn't how it works. Projection is always a two-way street. Often we project onto someone actually who does have the same trait that they possess. We may or may not exhibit that same trait, but either way, we recognize the trait because it seems to cause a flare-up of the wound left behind as a result of rejecting that aspect within ourselves. Also, when someone projects something upon us, we have to be a vibrational match to that experience. In other words, the experience of being projected upon is also a reflection of something that is being rejected within us. Fun. Projection has become one of the most common deflection techniques of all time. Many people use it as a cop-out, as a convenient way to avoid taking any objective perspective or look at yourself. Simply say, you're projecting. To anyone who approaches you with a negative aspect that they see in you. But the truth is, you can't consciously and clearly see another person until you are completely conscious of yourself. Otherwise, you'll continue to see everyone else through the filter of your own subconscious mind. Every time we refuse to look at ourselves, and every time we hide the fact by saying, you're just projecting, we miss an opportunity to see ourselves clearly. We also miss the opportunity to see our world and each other clearly. Sad. Everyone projects. So our goal shouldn't be to stop projecting, but rather our goal should be to become aware as self-aware as possible. My goodness. It's far better to view our extreme negative reactions of other people and our extreme positive ones as the perfect opportunity to develop our own self-awareness. Furthermore, it's not healthy to continue to judge something in another person. Yikes. The more we reject something in another, the more we exacerbate our own wounds. Oops. By rejecting someone, we are rejecting it yet again within ourselves. This is another reason to face and resolve hidden aspects of ourselves. If parts of ourselves continue to be rejected and suppressed, we become inauthentic. We are no longer our true selves. Oh shit. We become a walking facade that we think is the real us, which is an acutely painful state. Eventually, we have what I call a breakthrough symptom. This is an important concept to understand, and I usually describe it this way. The facade that you show the outside world is like a strip of cellophane. When the pressure of a suppressed aspect of yourself becomes intense enough, it bubbles up and pushes through your facade, causing it to rip or tear like a piece of cellophane. At this point, we say it has broken through. My God. The suppressed aspects within you are hidden from plain view, but when pressure causes them to break through, they appear visibly as physical symptoms. For example, Someone may have suppressed their feelings of anger, but most of the time it's under tight wraps. But given enough pressure, the anger will bubble up to the surface and manifest itself as a skin rash. This rash is an example of a breakthrough symptom. In truth, all visible symptoms are indicators of a deeper issue. We can think of them as red flags altering us to where our conscious attention is needed. Yikes. Breakthrough symptoms begin to bother us when we are in a place in our lives where the original threat that caused us to disassociate and fracture ourselves in the first place is no longer present. That's when you might hear your soul cry for integration because you want so much to be whole again. We are living organisms, and any living organism on this earth will trend into the direction of health. This is why you don't have to think about healing a cut on your hand in order for the cut to heal. The natural state of your body is in a state of health and wholeness, so your being will automatically start to heal itself. In the same way, your being will try to put all of those missing aspects of yourself back together again too. You'll keep running into people and circumstances that will highlight what is fractured deep within yourself so that you can heal and become whole again. The first step is to figure out how to start resolving and recovering those missing aspects of yourself. And that concludes chapter 1. My goodness, that was a lengthy one, huh? Up to 24 pages. Alrighty. That was chapter 1, kind of just the down low of like what the completion process is all about. Got a little bit of stories of people's thoughts on it. I kind of wanted to somewhat maybe talk about my experience. These past couple of months have probably been the hardest for me in my entire life, I think. Emotionally speaking, and that's why I've decided that it's time for me to really like take this seriously and start taking my healing seriously. Yeah. So I paid like $500 for a completion process practitioner to walk me through it. I've done it 2 times on an aspect of myself. The first session was actually just doing the completion process on the aspect of me that is afraid to do the completion process, which is a perfect way to do it. Highly recommend if you want to go into it, but you've never done it before. Highly recommend doing it literally on the part of yourself that's kind of resistant and afraid to do it. So you get that out of the way, you know? And the actual process of that was crazy. Like, just having that first taste of really experiencing an aspect of yourself that you pushed away, coming back into it and really feeling it come back into you. Like, the cover of this book shows like someone putting in a puzzle piece back into a puzzle. That's literally what it feels like. Like, if you could put that into a feeling, that's it. So it was crazy. And then I think the second time that I did it on my resistance towards achieving success, because I have this strange pattern of anytime something I care about and I work towards it, and you know, I am kind of proud of it, and I'm working towards it, it gets like taken away from me. And so I went into that and I found a lot of like childhood wounds within myself that kind of became the foundation of that fear. And now I know why I got banned on TikTok 4 times. And it makes a lot of sense now. It's just interesting to have that clarity about your past and about why the things in your present happening, you know? It's changed everything. And I have 3 more sessions. I actually have a session tomorrow with a practitioner, and I'm so excited. It becomes fun. Like, I know it sounds crazy. Like, it's not the most comfortable experience. Like, you gotta, like, revisit a lot of really fucked up emotions. But afterwards, holy shit. Like, I can't even explain to you what it really feels like. You just have to experience it for yourself. There's no way to explain it. Definitely worth it. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, that was kind of a blab, but thank you guys for watching this. This was the first chapter of the completion process, and hopefully next week I'll do chapter 2. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna try to see what you guys say. I need $500 to be guided through. I know. Okay, so if you go onto the website, if you guys are interested in doing the completion process after that, you can go onto Teal Swan's website. And she has a list of different practitioners with different varying prices for their services. Like, I only chose, mine was $500 because I chose to have 5 completion process sessions. So I've already gone through like 2 or 3. I can't even remember now. But that's why it was $500. Like, some other practitioners only charge like $100 for one session. You can buy packs. Like, there's all kinds of things. Just go onto the website and pick the person who you vibe with the most. And everyone has different price ranges. So look into it if it's something that you feel like you want to do. I wouldn't recommend trying to do it by yourself if you've never done it before. I tried that, and it was just kind of, it didn't get me anywhere. It was a little bit more stressful. So it's just nice to have someone who's certified and knows what they're doing to be there for you. Also, the whole thing about the completion process is like learning to have compassion for yourself about a certain subject that you literally at one point rejected and was like, no, this is not okay. So it's kind of hard to be that for yourself, you know? It's nice to have somebody else, someone who is there, even if it's just like a close friend or a family member or just a licensed practitioner, to be like, this is okay. And it is okay to be able to tell you that, because sometimes it's kind of hard to do that for yourself, you know? So yeah, I'm going to shut up now. Thank you guys. Love you so very, very much. I hope you enjoyed this. I love reading. I love it so much. It's just such a calming, exciting experience for me, and I'm glad I get to do that on here with you guys. Finally getting all my stuff figured out. Finally figuring out about the audio and the video. There's always room for improvement, of course, but I'm getting more confident and better. So thank you guys. Love you. I'm going to log off now, and I hope to see you next week, next Sunday, when we read again. Okay? Bye.